Today's show, we're going to be talking about how the Packers are absolutely salt. We're going to get into that as this week continues on, as they still keep complaining. The Detroit Lions signed two players, C.J. Moore, former Detroit Lion, and Kyle Peko. We're going to talk about those players. What do they bring to the Detroit Lions? We are being suggested to get Bud Dupree, linebacker / pass rusher, free agent. We're going to get to that. And what are the grades for the Detroit Lions undrafted free agent rookie class? We're going to go over what they gave the Detroit Lions, and then I'm going to give you my thought. That's what this video is all about, so let's go. For all the salt that's taken place from Green Bay Packers, place a hashtag FGB in the comment section as they continue to whine about Brad Holmes' ability to find talent for this football team and continue to jump them as the draft goes on for the last couple of years. And this is what's going on here with Green Bay Packers, Jeremy Fowler. Per ESPN, Jeremy Fowler, the Green Bay Packers were believed to have had Arnold rated highly on their board, and their turn was coming up first round. Once the AFC scout spoke to Fowler, praised the Arnold, bringing the Lions secondary as far as talent, spread coverage, and ball production, tackle and size, ability to play inside and outside, and him is the best corner. And I had Arnold is 1 or 2. It didn't really matter, 1A, 1B, with Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold. They're both really good cornerbacks, and they have their needs for the Detroit Lions. Happy the Lions made that move. And now, why is this in relation to the Packers' salt? Well, first off, last week we had we had a general manager who wanted to be anonymous, and he was criticizing the Detroit Lions, saying, it's this, that, and the other. Just keep criticizing the Detroit Lions. Yesterday, the day before, the Packers' general manager came out, criticized the Detroit Lions for the same thing. And now it's come out that they really like Terrion Arnold, in which I think a lot of people knew. That's why the Lions jumped him to get Terrion Arnold. And if you look towards last year, toward Brian Branch and Terrion Arnold this year, the Lions continue to jump over the Green Bay Packers to get the players they like to have. And that is where the salt comes in, because they continue to whine and cry about the Detroit Lions' ability to jump up and trade and get talent. I really don't understand why they're doing this. You don't see really any other team doing that to other teams. I just think it's absolute salt, and they're upset that the Lions are continuing to jump them and get the talent. And so I think it's funny. I think it is funny, and I want you guys to put hashtag FGB in the comment section right now. Hashtag FGB. Let's get this thing going. Next here on the list, we're talking about the Detroit Lions signing a player, and they signed a former Detroit Lion yesterday, the day before. Let's get into it. Everybody was like, man, you got opportunities to go somewhere else. And I did. Moore said C.J. Moore following the return to Detroit. I was literally telling my agent, I want to come back to Detroit because I know the type of confidence we have in this locker room. Now, a lot of people want to know why the Detroit Lions signed C.J. Moore. He was banned from the NFL last year, suspension due to the gambling. This is not a quote-unquote Brad Holmes type of guy because he gambled on games. And really, is it that big of a deal? Oh, well, look, for his career, he got suspended the whole season. The crime fit the punishment, right? He did his time. But guess what? He did his time. You get a second chance. That's part of life. Most people get second chances here. C.J. Moore getting his second chance with the Detroit Lions. I have no problem with this signing. It gives you depth at safety, but more importantly, he's a special teams guy that's going to take big-time plays that we have on fourth down, which we've done in the past, or he's done when he was here, not last year because he was suspended, but the year before, kept getting the first downs. Well, that's what he brings, right? You have that dimension now of special teams player that the Lions have a guy they can go with on fourth down and special teams. Lions are really good on offense. Their special teams is probably one of the best in the NFL now. Once we get a kicker, the field goal, that will pretty much end it. But the coverage unit and kick and punt return is fantastic, and punting is great. So we just need a real kicker. And this pretty much makes the special teams there. And then obviously we remodeled the defense. Remember, it takes all three phases for a team to, get to a Super Bowl. It takes a lot, right? It takes all three phases: offense, defense, special teams. It takes luck. It takes health. There's a lot of things that has to happen for the Lions to get to a Super Bowl, for any team to get to a Super Bowl. A lot of things got to play out. And what the Lions can do is continue to get the 3 phases of that covered. And that's with special teams. So I do not mind Mr. C.J. Moore coming back to the Detroit Lions. I don't. The deal's not a big deal. It's a 1-year deal. Oh, big deal. So, look, if he can help out the Lions special teams and help the Detroit Lions continue to win, zero problem with it. Yes, he gambled. Okay. Well, guess what? I went to the casino last week. Matter of fact, I was streaming at the NFL draft at the casino. I get it. You don't want to bet on games and all this, that, and the other for players because of what happened in the NBA, and you don't want to have a situation occur where they're betting on themselves. At the same time, it's really not. It's not something that should be banned a player from the NFL. It's not like he beat up some girl. It's not like he went to prison or he's running from the police. He gambled. And he got punished for it. His whole season was gone. Matter of fact, there's probably a good chance that he may not have gotten a career back. So he learned his lesson. Give the man a second chance. Give him a second chance. At least I say that. Are you fine with the Lions signing C.J. Moore? Why for yes and then for no? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Me, yes. Second chance. The Detroit Lions signed a defensive tackle. Recognized with their Lions defensive line coach here, Kyle Peko. Defensive lineman, 6'1", 298 pounds, out of Oregon State was his college, 30 years old. He was an undrafted free agent in 2016. What did he do this year? Well, Mr. Peko had 22 solo tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 0 sacks, and 1 pass defense. So it's not some gigantic stats here for Mr. Peko. What did he do the following year? He had 11 tackles, 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss, and 1 pass defense. In 21, he played in 8 games, 10 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, 0 pass defense. In 2020, he played in 0 games, 0 tackles, 0, 0, 0, right? So in 21, 8, 22, 8, then 13 games played this past season. Is this guy going to come in here and be a game wrecker for our Detroit Lions? No, that's not what he is. I think he's just a camp body. He may make the 53-man roster. I have my doubts on there. But he does know, obviously, the defensive line coach, and that gives him a little bit of edge in training camp and knowing the plays and all that type of stuff. So I don't think too highly of Mr. Peko. I'm not saying this guy is going to come in here and win us a Super Bowl. He is a depth player. You got to have depth pieces, and you got to have players whom can help the roster out, right? This is just, yes, we love our starters, but you got to have a good depth chart in the NFL. You have to if you're going to go anywhere, because guess what? Injuries happen, and that's just the bottom line. It's just the way that the world works. There's a player that, a couple websites would like the Detroit Lions to get, and guess what? He understands our defensive line coach as well, and that's Mr. Bud Dupree, 6'4", 269 pounds, out of Kentucky, 31 years old, drafted 2050 in the first-round pick 22. What did he do this past season? Mr. Depree, he had 39 solo tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 3 pass defense. In 22, he played in 11 games, 18 tackles, 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 0 pass defense. In 21, 11 games played, 17 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 pass defense. And in 11 games played with the Steelers, 31 tackles, 8 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, 2 pass defense. So look, he is a veteran pass rusher / linebacker. He understands the Lions' defensive line. Could they go out there and get a player of his ilk? Could they go out there and get him? They absolutely could do that. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but they could do that. If the Lions would like to get another pass catcher. Now, do I think they will? Probably not. I'm thinking they're not going to do that, but they could. This is not out of the realm of possibility. If you're doing 50-50, I'm going to go below 50 here just because it's just a name rumored. But with the familiarity with our defensive line coach, obviously he's a pass rusher. He did produce last year 6.5 sacks. He played in 16 games. He was reliable, and if they want to have depth at the defensive line, they absolutely could sign him. So I got a question for you. Would you sign Bud Dupree? S for sign or P for pass? Let us know in the comments below. Let's continue on here and talk about what the Detroit Lions can potentially do here when it comes to undrafted free agent. What were their grades? Well, grades came out from Thor Nystrom, and he said the Lions following an outstanding draft, which earned one of my 2 yearly A-plus grades, with a more of a modest showing of undrafted free agent bargain bin. They did, however, add 4 prospects to keep an eye on. In linebacker, Steel Chambers, wide receiver Isaiah Williams, tight end Isaac Rex, and center Kingsley Igwekin. And yes, these are the same players I think a lot of us were talked about as the undrafted guys. The same players, right? We talked about Isaiah Williams a lot. We talked about Kingsley Igwekin because we need to have depth at safety. Now, Isaac Rex is a fan favorite. Some of our YouTubers there getting in there, and Isaiah Steele could take over the Pittman role. So I get it. Now, he gave the Detroit Lions a 22 out of 32. That was his ranking. And should we care about this? Absolutely not. What does it matter? When you get to a 53-man roster, generally speaking, you're only going to probably have one of those guys make the 53. It's a short list, and some of the guys on the practice squad. So, yes, they got his rating was 22 out of 32. But if you're looking to just get one guy on your team, does it really matter? And they needed a wide receiver, and they could do depth at center. So those are positions that absolutely maybe these guys do make the roster, but there's not going to happen where more than 3 or 4 are going to ever make a roster unless your roster is 0-16 bad. But that's not the case here in Detroit. Our roster is really good, so it's going to be quite difficult for these undrafted rookies to want to come here. Why is that? Because the odds of them making the roster is down, and compared to teams like the Carolina Panthers and New York Giants, where the roster is butt cheeks. So, no, I don't really care. I think that's about normal. And we'll see if any of these guys make the team. I think Isaiah Williams has a real shot to do that for the Detroit Lions. Some of these guys could be on the practice squad. So let me know your grades for the undrafted rookie. I'm curious to see what you think. With that said, folks, adios.